This is a Poet Punch podcast. Angor, Daniel Drum.
Some Daredevils.
Oh yeah, a lot of Daredevils.
Darren Cross.
Which one's Darren Cross?
The Ant-Man 1 villain.
Oh, Dawn.
Okay.
There's so many Dazzlers, and I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
There is a whole row of Dazzlers.
They're actually hard. That's fucking terrifying. All right. Random number between
1 and 6. A
1 and
dice
6.
roll, if you will.
1. Here we
Okay,
go. Here we go.
Okay.
So, 1 is
Dambala, Danger, Dangor, Daniel Drum, Danny Moonstar, and Danika Hart.
interesting.
I don't know who Danika Hart is, but she has got a Spider-Man logo on her.
All right. And we'll roll once more.
I'm hoping for Danger, personally. 6. I guess it's Danika Hart.
Danika Hart. All right.
What's she got? A vlogger.
Interesting.
A vlogger. Okay. Vlogger Danika Hart publishes the latest videos of superheroes, which often spotlight Miles Morales.
It's the fucking DaniCast.
In Miles Morales PS5 game.
Yeah, it's the DaniCast one.
Right.
Okay, so I think there's something to this here.
Do you know what I think this is? I don't think this is a movie or a TV show.
It's a podcast.
I don't even think it's a podcast. I think it's like an in-universe mini-series. Like, you know how like they used to do like the Agent Coulson shorts?
Yeah.
And they did the Team 4 short or whatever, right?
Mm.
It's one of those. Well, it's kind of that format where it's like in-betweeners.
I don't know if it's that. I think this is like so our other producer Rue and I have had this idea for a while.
Okay.
Which is that Marvel should have a sitcom that's set in the MCU but is basically nothing to do with like the Avengers. Superheroes. It's just regular people living in New York.
So this is an ordinary woman who is tangentially related to superheroes through covering them as her job.
Yeah. And it gives you more of a grounded like what does the average person know about like what does the average person know about Spider-Man? What does the average person know about the event? Like actually know about the Avengers?
I actually quite like this if we go down the avenue of this being a Gen Z person who like researches them for work. Much like how I do screenwriting for work, theoretically.
Much like how anyone does anything for work.
Yeah, and no, but it's something which is like a niche topic, but then like everyone assumes that they know everything about it.
Right.
So when you're having like your average Christmas Eve conversation,
right,
they'll be like, "Oh, so it works like this, right?" And it'll be like, "That's not even remotely close to how anything works." It'll be like, "Oh, I just assumed that the director wrote things," right. Or "Oh, I just assumed that." What's a producer? What do they do? And it's like they make the entire movie exist.
I've never heard of a producer be on set.
Yeah,
before.
stuff like that. Where it's like. So it could be the equivalent. So it's just people like your average boomer uncle is like assuming that they know the ins and outs of like the superhero world, and then being like, "I've got the scoop of a lifetime for you," and then it's just like some random like news article that got put on their feed that's about some random like New York crime has risen, and there's so many.
Yeah,
individuals, and then she's going to be like, no, that's just you're in a media bubble. Nothing's happening really at that level. Like, yes, there is crime, but there's not so much crime that.
I think this works. I think this works as like we need to kind of quickly establish what does this character. What made this character start a podcast about Spider-Man?
I think one thing as well, we have to be very careful that this is not She-Hulk.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It would...
but it's more than that, because like She-Hulk from the get-go in the comics and in the Disney show is essentially, we're going to make a slice of life environment inside of superhero comics. Like that is what She-Hulk is at a core essential level.
The show doesn't really feel like
the
that.
The only
though.
difference between this is that is a court drama sitcom slice of life environment. Supposedly. At least She-Hulk comics are like courtroom drama slice of life thing. That's why you get characters like 8-Ball that just like jump into it.
Yeah.
Right? You have to make sure that if it's another sitcom environment, it's slightly different from Miss Marvel. I wasn't saying that
this has to be the sitcom.
Okay.
I was saying that like the idea that we've had for a while is that there should be a sitcom.
Oh, okay.
Thing
so not related to this.
That's because
right.
The idea of having a show that's continuous and runs alongside the MCU.
Yeah.
That shows like what does it look like to the average person when the Thunderbolts happens, and then like everyone has an episode where they're stuck in their fucking hell prison for like a few minutes.
Yeah. What
is that like for the average person, or like people who've come back from this? What is that like? But I think with this, I think it would be a sitcom might not be the right. It would feel more like it make more sense to feel like an early 2000s kind of show for younger audiences, but not if Miss Marvel didn't have any actual superhero stuff.
I think, okay, because the main thing with that sitcom idea is that it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Like,
it's
interesting to entertain on a podcast. I'm probably going to try and avoid thinking too much in actual work brain, because the work brain part of me goes, okay, but that would never happen because no one would ever greenlight the funding for it because it's too much funding.
I don't think it would
for
be.
Too small a concept.
I don't think it would be too much funding.
It would be. People would can that.
Why would it?
People would probably give it like.
What would the funding be for?
Okay, everything needs funding to a certain extent.
But what would the funding? What would the thing that would make the budget higher than any other sitcom? No,
I'm not saying that it's higher than any other sitcom or whatever. I'm saying that the return on the concepts and the audience that you would bring in wouldn't facilitate the budget that you would need for that to actually be executed, even though the budget would be low. Because you would be closing the door on regular sitcom goers because they would go, ew, Marvel. Whether that's good or bad as an audience thing, it would just be a factor that a producer would have to look at and go, okay, this otherwise ordinary sitcom doesn't have to be linked to Marvel, but is linked to Marvel, and then because it's linked to Marvel, it's losing. There's lots of weird things where it's just like, I don't see that ever happening.
Well, what's that got to do with the episode?
I don't know. You brought it up.
No, because
I don't know.
Was just, I brought it up. You need to understand the concept of context.
Yeah.
Where I brought it up as context for like the idea of a slice of life show.
Right.
That's not got like any super. So the difference with like you can't really compare this to something like Ms. Marvel or She-Hulk, because that still is about two superhero characters.
Person.
And superhuman characters are constantly within it.
Yeah.
It's closer to Jessica Jones than anything.
No. I got that part. That wasn't the part that I was confused by at all.
It's that I think you just need to show like what draws someone to start a vlog or podcast or whatever about Spider-Man. What causes
there's the easy answer, which is that Spider-Man or a Miles Morales character in some way saves someone close to her.
That's boring.
It's boring, but it does immediately. The reason why it is overused is because it immediately gives some sort of human connection to it, when it's otherwise a story where there is very little interaction between these two characters that are linked.
I think there's more value in looking at like...
Oh, I've got one idea. What? Okay, we've been watching The Studio, right? I would maybe have it that Danica Hart is a PA for James Jonah Jameson.
Right.
In like the current MCU version of JJJ, where he's like an Alex Jones, what is it, InfoWars type character who has a podcast studio. And so Danica is having to like balance the fact that she needs a paycheck at the end of the day, and she is technically doing something that she loves doing in that she's covering superhero stories. It's just that unfortunately, due to the work environment that she's in, she has to cover superhero stories in a negative light.
I think that would only work for maybe the pilot as like your
but it's push. An in. It's an in, right? Because otherwise,
well, yeah, I think like...
And I think especially because JJJ would work as a really... Like, yes, he is very closely linked to Spider-Man as a character, but he would be a fun, like, character that does create stupid situations in a sitcom environment and isn't a superhuman.
Right.
So it's someone who has unbridled rage for absolutely no reason, creates in like problems that need to be solved in the course of an episode constantly, and we don't have the issue of being like, okay, but he has superpowers, how does that affect anything? No, he's just a guy who has a weird one-sided vendetta.
Right.
And Danica is just a girl who has a weird one-sided admiration for superheroes.
I don't know if...
I think that pairs.
I don't know. I don't, because I don't think that the Danica Hart character is necessarily, like, all in on Spider-Man either.
No, she's not. But it's still... She's all in on the concept of reporting about superheroes, which is kind of obsessive behavior in a way. It's obsessive behavior for a good cause.
Yeah, but is it any different to someone, like, having, like, a podcast that talks about, like, football
or a podcast that talks about making movies, for superheroes?
It's no less.
It's not, but like it's still like we're making this podcast. We've got to be a certain kind of mentally diseased individual to make this podcast.
But that's why I'm saying. Like the in could just be the fact of like watching the inconsistency of like the Mysterio stuff come out. So like.
That would actually be a really good opening, especially because there's like the whole like long take stuff going on in Spider-Man 3, right? With the No Way Home stuff, where that just gets leaked and everything has to that discovery. So if you do the equivalent, but it's from Danica Hart's perspective at JJJ's.
I'm still not sold on the JJJ stuff.
I really like the JJJ stuff.
No, because I think again that puts too much of like, it puts too much of a like, oh, I was in the right place at the right time thing on it, rather than being like somebody who just saw all of the inconsistencies of the story of the story that was being put out against Spider-Man, which was that like Spider-Man was responsible for the attack on London, and being and like someone who was like, well, it just doesn't make any sense, and had been hearing that the arguments of, well, Spider-Man's clearly a crook and has done this stuff,
right?
And has got to the point where it's like, look, I'm just going to get all my thoughts, I'm just going to put all the evidence that I know about and put that onto one episode of a podcast, so that whenever someone fucking asks me about this, I have that, and then that blows up and does really well, and is like, oh my god, look, see, someone's actually fighting on behalf of Spider-Man rather than all of the news.
I still think
demonizing him.
I think yes, I get what you're saying, but the part of me that another part of me is going, okay, but you need some easy, okay, not easy, but you need a way to connect some characters together and have a bit of an ensemble. And for there to be a human personal connection that is beyond just you are both in the same industry behind two screens. So you need that connection, even if it is literally she is working there. JJJ does this report. She immediately hates it. She leaves her job. She makes a podcast. She immediately makes a counter narrative to JJJ. You've at least established that they do technically know each other.
Okay.
Right? So it gives them, having had this office environment, why they might hate each other from then on, and why it might be a little bit more personal than just like, oh, that we just disagree on Spider-Man. Because that is, especially if we're making a story which is kind of less about superheroes and more about ordinary people around superheroes, you need to have those personal connections to link them initially.
Yeah.
So you do need the JJJ stuff at the beginning, I reckon. Even if it is literally, this is the pilot episode.
Yeah.
She says, fuck you, she leaves. She makes her own podcast, like, literally the next day. Yeah. She makes a counter-narrative. Especially because if she's been having to suck up to someone like JJJ for, like, years, she probably would be quite silent on her actual own, like, opinions in regards to superheroes.
Yeah, but JJJ doesn't hate superheroes. He just hates Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That's
wild as well.
That's the gimmick, because he loves Captain America. And JJJ is a big Captain America fan.
Right, yeah.
And hates Spider-Man. Is the whole, like, so it's not as simple as pro superheroes.
That's actually really interesting to think of JJJ as someone who is in the wider MCU with that as well, I guess.
Yeah, because it's not as simple. It's not I think,
what does JJJ do after everyone forgets who Spider-Man is?
He goes back to blaming Spider-Man for being a coward for not revealing himself.
Oh, so he immediately goes, oh, there's this guy called...
So, because
people still know who Spider-Man is, they just don't know who...
Peter Parker is.
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, he still thinks, well, Spider-Man is still responsible for...
It's fine, we know who Danika Hart is.
Yeah.
Right.
Still thinks Spider-Man is responsible for the Mysterio attack in London, and is still like 100% bought in on that concept.
Okay.
And so I like, if anything, I see JJJ as somebody who is a team Cap all the way through, like from Civil War. Someone who is like, actually the Sokovia Accords suck. And
so weirdly,
it's government overreach,
like pro superhero, just in a way that you don't,
but it's like
necessarily associate with JJJ initially. Okay,
and finds that like the part of the problem with like government controlled superheroes is that they belong to the government in a conspiracy theory way, rather than in a Captain America. In a way, like,
this is about having the ability to make the right call kind of way. Yeah, it's about no, they're puppets of the state.
Yeah, like, which is like which becomes the more
like all good conspiracy theories. It's half true.
It's half true.
Like there is an element of truth and then a complete yoink and twist that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that then makes this more interesting. Is that Danika Hart is not the opposite to JJ.
Mm-hmm.
Danika Hart is just like
a different flavor,
a more being more like
she's a different generation of the same
same thought process, and that might be even explain, why Danika Hart was working for JJJ originally, is because when he started out. He started out about how like, hey, that like about like talking out against the Sokovia Accords that called all of the event that basically.
I wouldn't say it starts with Sokovia because that would be too.
No, the show doesn't have to start there.
No. I mean, even JJJ's career wouldn't start with Sokovia Accords because that's too soon away from when people would start thinking about Spider-Man more. Because that would literally be like a week goes by. And then suddenly Spider-Man is on the big stage versus just being a regular New Yorker.
Right.
So it would be weird if JJJ basically had a week-long career where it was progressive politics in regards to superheroes. And then suddenly, I hate this Spider-Man guy and gets obsessed. Like, if we look at the real-world comparisons, Alex Jones had, like, 20 years of being obsessed with being angry at the Bush administration and then pivoted to being quite...
But that's what he's angry at Stark for years.
But I would say like that anger with Stark starts in like 2008, and then it's like he's never changed, and then it's the Sokovia Accords, that bullshit. It's kind of like a pylon. It's like bitterness over bitterness over bitterness.
Yeah.
Rather than just starting with Sokovia.
But like what I'm saying is, no, but this is, again, from Danika's perspective, what Danika joined into was peak Sokovia.
So she joins peak Sokovia.
She joins peak Sokovia Accords time, being like, yeah, this is fucked up. The governments think they can just control the Avengers just because they're the governments.
Mm.
And that, like, they can label them criminals just for existing.
Yeah.
That's fucked up. Especially, like, superpowered, like, individuals who have done good.
Mm.
And then I think where JJJ starts going down the deep end is after Infinity War, where he rightfully is blaming the Sokovia Accords for the fact that Thanos wins.
All right.
But has gone... But
so would this story be during the blip?
No, this is after.
So this is more.
This is after No Way Home.
Okay,
but so like, I think what happens is that she is blipped in between.
Okay, so
we
kind of
get to her boss having fucking lost it over 5 years.
So we essentially we have kind of her seeing the beginning of JJJ, going, oh, this is a wonderful man who has a worthy crusade like my own, and then she gets blipped, and then. This adds more to JJJ, I guess, because JJJ would now have lost someone close to him.
Yeah.
And have also just kind of gone completely off the rails. And by the time that Danika comes back...
Well, I don't think JJJ is someone who's lost someone close to him. I think
he would have lost a co-worker. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So he would have literally lost Danika.
Yeah.
And... that may not be the main reason why, but it's definitely a catalyst, which is like, oh, right, the really sparky, passionate, young intern woman who just joined me and is very like-minded to me just fucking got killed.
And I blame Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And
I am now further blaming Tony Stark for the actions that he chose.
Mm. And then when Tony Stark is seen as a hero by everyone...
Yeah.
You kind of have to have that it's that mental shift of like, well, okay, fine. Well, if Tony Stark's a hero, I guess Spider-Man is the next one down on that list.
Yeah, clearly he's got Stark tech. Clearly he's making like puff pieces. Like, is Spider-Man the next corrupt superhero? Yeah, like that kind of stuff.
And then, like, I see it as she comes back from the blip. Seeing how much her boss has changed over 5 years.
Right.
And is like, and probably sticks it out for a bit.
Like a month or two.
Yeah,
and then
it's
quits,
like, I fucking can't.
How long does the... How long between Stark dying in Endgame and... what is it?
Far From Home?
There's Far From Home?
And No Way Home.
So when does Far From Home happen in comparison to Endgame?
So Endgame happens in about October, and then
they're on the summer trip.
Home is the next summer over, because they have to redo their year at school again.
And then that's essentially...
And then No Way Home is...
No Way Home at least opens with
the next school year up until... And then it finishes at Christmas. So there's like a year and a bit between Stark dying and...
so that's a short enough time that you can go through the motions with JJJ and Danika, at least.
Yeah.
Where you can essentially have the intro being Danika's interview with JJJ, like during the Civil War stuff, and then like she's been working for a bit, she's on a day route, boom, blipped, much like the Yelena sequence in Hawkeye. She comes back, she sees a completely different media environment than from what she got into. Kind of like how in real life you have like news stations constantly pivoting over like 4-year cycles because like what's considered the norm has changed over like 4 years now. You have her kind of come into that new environment. She sticks it out for roughly a year, i.e. kind of in line with the Spider-Man films.
Gets to the London stuff.
Well, yeah, gets to the JJJ doing the report that is the end of Far From Home.
And sees that he's basically doxed this kid.
Yeah.
And is like, this is fucked, I have to leave.
Yeah, and then she leaves, and then she sparks her whole journalist career.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's pretty good, because I think part of the issue with addressing sitcoms in a podcast episode is that it is literally
the formula.
The formula is you have a problem, you fix the problem.
Yeah.
You have a problem, you fix the problem. You have a problem, you fix the problem.
But this would be more of us outlining the overarching.
It's because that's another thing as well. Because if you're saying this is at least 5 seasons or whatever, because it's like a really low budget thing that Marvel can do in the corner, you have to make it tailored to whatever is going on in the main studio films first.
Yeah.
And then work back.
But then you could do it. You could essentially do it. The first episode is
you could do mutant. You could do soft booting mutants through this.
I think they've
not. It's possible.
I don't think they're doing any mutant stuff.
No, but okay, well, you could at least do. Okay, so when Doomsday is occurring, they're doing coverage on Doomsday, and they go, "Who is this guy? That looks a bit weird."
Is it you do that? That's the case. So what I was saying was,
what I'm saying here
is that the pilot is all of what we just talked about.
Yeah.
But then the second episode, your kind of repilot, is a time jump ahead to now, or the now. So like Thunderbolt's equivalent, and she's kind of like the podcast that she started is getting a bit more popular. She probably still is working another job while doing it.
She's probably doing something part-time and menial. Yeah. She's probably a barista and a podcaster.
Yeah. But she's doing it, and like you then can do the whole like, I don't know, like no one knows who Spider-Man is and blah blah blah. But that way you get the
How would she deal with that? Because her whole catalyst for leaving JJJ is that he just doxed a kid. Well, and then suddenly she'd have to forget.
Well, you could use this to explain what that is like when
on a human level for an average person,
where all you see that she leaves because he's doxed this kid among other things.
Yeah,
but then when it's talked about later on,
she can't remember why.
The reason, no, it's not that she can't remember why. The reason has probably been shifted to because he was acting like guilty until proven innocent with Spider-Man, and it's not.
That's interesting because you've essentially because
it's like
you kind of have to like self-retcon a character, like not even like in like an ugly word use of the word retcon. Like you do just have to.
It's a personal
because like reality is shifting around you, a small individual in a wider world.
Yeah,
you've now got to make a whole new reason why.
Well, I imagine that for most people, it probably doesn't affect their life that much because not many people would have actually made decisions.
Whereas
based on
her
Spider-Man.
entire world right now is loosely centered around Spider-Man because she literally quit her good-paying, big break job.
It's like the Happy Hogan thing of like he knows who May Parker is, but like he knows May Parker through Spider-Man, but that relationship isn't clear. It probably isn't clear. Like if you asked him, and how does that work?
Yeah,
he'd probably go, Spider-Man knew Tony, and Spider-Man helped with was at that feast,
thing,
stuff
like that, and then that's where I met her,
and that would be his instead of that having the like thing of like
I've just had one mini idea that I think is funny.
Yeah,
you know how Zendaya is in that coffee shop at the end of MJ is in that coffee shop at the end.
Yeah.
Well, if Danika has to work 2 jobs, and she just works conveniently at the same barista coffee shop.
It could be
Zendaya's probably moved on, gone to college.
Yeah.
That was a part-time job. She just happens to be in the same one because it's just a weird like happenstance thing at that point. Where it's like, you're so close to almost being in Spider-Man's world, and yet you're just not in that very like.
Well, you could absolutely have like
the design is human.
I think you could have the I say smaller cameos. You could definitely do it where like there's in one episode while she's at work, Peter Parker walks in and
Yeah.
And he's like,
you can do that in a way where you literally just get Tom Holland to do some lines.
Yeah.
And then you get an extra that looks a little bit like Tom Holland, and part of the whole gimmick is that you don't actually maintain eye contact with him.
Yeah.
He's just a guy, so he's literally a background actor who just happens to be walking into a coffee shop, and then you just hit, it's like, is that Tom Holland's voice? Oh, it is. Interesting. Yeah. Why? Oh, right.
And it's like, you've missed, like, again, it's like,
especially if it's a journalist character, the scoop is right there. It's just that you're literally like, because of the material like laws of this world, you just can't get it.
Well, no, they're not. It's not that they're not allowed to know who Peter Parker is after.
Sure, but like
the memory.
Yeah, right? It's kind of.
It's more that they just lose all memory of him. So like he just blends into who everyone else is.
Yeah.
So you could have him be there and get coffee and go to that coffee shop because that's where he last saw Zendaya and MJ. And Ned.
Yeah.
And he goes there quite often.
Oh yeah, Ned doesn't know.
And he's just and he's just like a guy.
Yeah.
Who comes in. And you don't really focus on it, but you're like, yeah, that's him.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
Ned is a character. I don't know the link right now, but I do think Ned is quite funny.
They both go off to uni. They both. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that it should be linked.
So it should be more. This is New York, and this is New York after Ned and Zendaya have gone to college, and Spider-Man is still around because he essentially has NYU. No future.
He's at NYU now.
Instead of going off to a different college,
which is Boston, was it?
Something like that.
Yeah, it was MIT, so Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's an NYU kid, right? But he so he can't have him, but that's unfortunate because he would have been an interesting one.
Yeah, but
where because at that point you could have just done small people's worlds where these are characters, because you don't have to link characters just through jobs or stuff. You can also just link them where it's just, oh, this person takes the same train to work. Yeah. This person does this. This person. Who else is in New York that isn't big like a superhero? Because like I think someone like Kate Bishop, too big. She's in the superhero world now. She's with Hawkeye.
Yeah,
that's too close to the Avengers to really fit the tone.
I mean, you've got like Miss Marvel, who's kind of more in Jersey City, can be in New York. You've got Daredevil.
I think there should definitely be an episode where you're covering Miss Marvel, because that's also like a local news scoop.
Yeah, and I also have stuff about like
Daredevil. Karen Page would be a great character.
To be careful about the Daredevil spoilers, you could have her covering like the Fisk becoming mayor and government and the government overreach of Fisk. And what does J.J. Abrams? What does J. Jonah Jameson?
I don't like the Metachlorians.
Yeah.
It's just James Jonah Jameson screaming from the top of his lungs like the Metachlorians. Yeah. They defantasize the fucking
yeah.
Okay.
What does he think of like the fact that Fisk is part of government overreach and is blatantly like taking the law into his own hands as mayor of New York?
I think James would love that.
Is his name James?
James Jonah Jameson.
No, it's J. Jonah Jameson.
I thought it's James.
It might be, but he's never called James Jonah Jameson.
He's JJJ. Mr. Jameson. Just type JJJ. Yeah, but what's the J? What's the J?
John.
Ew.
Yeah, where you? Because
I don't know where I got James.
It's because he says it's J. Jonah Jameson. You've just been hearing James Jonah Jameson.
I guess. So it's John.
You're bad with names.
I am terrible with names. Historically, yeah, I'm very bad with names.
You've been calling the place where Doctor Strange lives the Sanctum Sanatorium.
Have I?
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
You have.
Wait, what is it supposed to be?
The Sanctum Sanctorum.
Funny. Yeah, I am quite bad. I'm bad where I'm just like, if it's a word that I don't usually write down,
it's a different word.
It's a different word. Yeah.
Yeah. Average English colonizer.
Okay.
Your name is too hard to say. From now on, you are John Smith.
You are now Sanatorium.
What? But I have a name. No, John Smith. Oh, well,
it has been decreed. I will draw this line in the sand.
I guess we're making John Smiths now.
Right. So Johnny Boy.
Don't JJJ.
I'm trying to.
So I think he would be.
So what I was going to talk about his views on fit. I think he would be pro-Fisk.
No, I don't think he is.
But I haven't admittedly seen the Daredevil story. But I think he would be pro-Fisk because it's someone taking matters in. So he likes the idea of Captain America, where it's someone who takes matters into their own hands.
No, but I think he hates Spider-Man for that exact. I think, right?
I don't think he hates Spider-Man for that reason. I think if we're going for the logic that he hates Tony Stark,
yeah,
I think he just hates people who
I suspect that he's more
who takes matters into their own hands recklessly. So he sees a teenage kid in a mask as a reckless behavior activity. He sees Tony Stark, the billionaire playboy,
I think JJJ
as a reckless
is
character,
someone
but
who
he sees Captain America as an upstarting kid, as a paragon of. Yeah.
I think he's someone who supports Fisk in the campaign of him becoming mayor. But when he's in office,
right?
Become especially again. You've not seen Daredevil.
Born Again.
Yeah, Born Again. Well, you've not seen Daredevil season 3 yet either.
No, but yeah.
But I think he would not support the shit that's going down by the end of Born Again.
Right, but he would have campaigned for the man.
I don't think he would have campaigned for him. I think he would have been like, this guy is at least, he's not a politician. It's the thing. It's what got.
It's the Donald Trump logic. Whereas it's the difference. This guy's a businessman. He knows what to do.
There is a difference between Trump first president, Trump first. What's it called?
I love this is the kind of podcast where we will talk about the Trump presidency alongside Spider-Man.
Well, no, because that's clearly what Daredevil is.
It is, but it's just wild.
But the difference is that it's like first term versus second term.
Yeah,
where Trump first term, you could argue was not great, but it's much worse in this term than it was before. And I think you could
because it's a difference between like working it out on the fly and calculation.
See somebody who supported the first term of being like, this is somebody who can shake things up and can scare the politicians into actually doing something.
Yeah.
And then seeing like, oh, this is what government overreach looks like. I don't like government overreach.
He's very much not draining the swamp.
Yeah, he's accepting Air Force One from Qatar.
Yeah.
That's not America first. What is that?
Wilson Fisk buys yo,
they're gonna drain New Jersey.
It's like the actual New York governor Eric Adams, where he just randomly takes bribes from the Turkish government.
Does he?
Yeah, his whole thing is so Turkey has some beef with a different country, and I can't remember exactly what, but they basically committed. No, it's not Greece, but they basically committed a war crime. And then Eric Adams took money from Turkey for them to say that they guarantee that he will never say that this Turkish event was a war crime.
Right.
So he just randomly got... Oh, wait, it wasn't even money. I remember now. So it wasn't even money. He just got, first class plane tickets for certain events.
Ugh.
So he basically took a bribe from a foreign national government regarding a war crime. He's the governor of New York. This has nothing to do with him. So he took this bribe so that he could get some first class plane tickets.
Wouldn't you though? Wouldn't you?
Real.
Wouldn't, yeah.
Hustle, grind.
But that's what I don't think. I think while the fun comparison of like he's like Alex Jones kind of works for No Way Home specifically.
Yeah.
I don't think that works anymore.
That would also be interesting is that you have, because if we're doing this pilot episode where you have JJJ looking quite rational by Sokovia time, then you have the blip, and then he's gone into full InfoWars mode. Yeah. And then you have, okay, well that was then. When was Far From Home?
What year?
What year was it released in?
2022.
So 2022, and then we move on to 2025, 2026.
Yeah,
but like in terms of release, not in terms of when it is chronologically. Yeah. Like, what is the current like weird schizo right wing person look like?
Well, I think also you have to bear in mind
Joe Rogan podcast.
I think you have to bear in mind that the MCU's political climate is very different from ours.
Yeah, but it's still good to think about where we are now and try and get some influence off it,
right?
And then recontextualize it back into what the MCU is.
Right, yeah, because
you still have to borrow from reality to make a
which is what they do with Daredevil.
Yeah,
where it differs is that I don't think that you've got the same overarching political climate, especially like you look at the opening of Brave New World. There's talks of like unity between parties is like one of the big
which
things,
is like unheard of right now in terms of
is like one of the big things that the president says in his speech, in his victory speech, is that like it's not about like
also
which party
it was a hard election to win for Ross.
It seems,
and it was a hard election for Trump to win, but now like Democrats now.
Yeah,
not exactly like tough to beat.
No,
after the election loss,
I think
they've had to completely restructure, but they also don't know what their identity is anymore.
No, because it doesn't. Because like
so fundamentally, the MCU is a bit more optimistic and bright than
yes,
in some ways. Yeah,
I think like one of the big differences is that you've got you've had no two-term presidents. You have no two-term presidents since Bush in the MCU. You get but
is Bush is canonical.
So it goes Bush from 2000 to 2008. You have a one-term Obama presidency that ends in
because in Iron Man
that ends in 2012, and in Iron Man 3 there's a new guy who you assume is Republican because he covered up the oil spill from Roxxon.
Yeah.
He then is no longer president by 2016. Trump becomes president in 2016
in
the MCU.
Okay.
Because he's mentioned in multiple shows, including like Jessica Jones, stuff like that.
Okay. So canonically, it goes.
He then
Bush, Obama, weird Iron Man 3 guy, Trump, and
then at Trump, you assume something happens. Trump stops being president at some point after the blip.
So I'm assuming. So for now, assuming 2020, 2021 turnaround.
The blip happens in 2018. So, and I think that
but that would be where that election is, surely? Really? Okay,
wrong.
Right.
The elections in the MCU have been moved.
Oh, no!
The elections in the MCU have been moved because of the blip.
Oh, fucking hell.
Which is why the election of...
Wait, did Trump get blipped?
Harrison... You don't know. You don't know. But the election of Harrison Ford takes place in 2026 instead of 2024.
Okay.
Which means that there's a 2-year move, which makes sense if... You've gone from, instead of a 2020 election to a 2018 election. Because either president has been blipped or there's been a government reshuffle and no confidence in him or whatever.
Yeah.
Or he steps down.
Something happened in the blip that caused Trump's...
The then president's cycle is moved 2 years early.
Yeah.
You then have... a president that's in that time period that we don't know about at all.
So it would be a 2022 administration, then a 2026 administration.
And then 2020, so it goes 2022 to 2026.
I love how this sounds like a tangent, but is genuinely relevant to working this out.
2022 to 2026 is President, I think President Ritson, he's in Secret Invasion and nothing else.
Okay, right.
But he's the president who essentially declares war on all non-Earth-born life forms.
Oh yeah. So run me through what the fuck's going on in Secret Invasion, real quick.
Right. So
because I just didn't fucking watch it.
So after Captain Marvel, Nick Fury promises the Skrulls that he will find them places to live.
Yeah.
On Earth, if Captain Marvel can't find any places. Out in space.
Right.
And so a group of them are living with him and...
On that space station.
No. Are living with him on Earth.
Right.
And to advance his career in S.H.I.E.L.D., he, unbeknownst to anyone else in S.H.I.E.L.D., is using them to gather intel. And that's how he ends up rising up the ranks of S.H.I.E.L.D., is that he's using the Skrulls to infiltrate places.
Oh, so like this was all happening like during Winter Soldier?
No, this is all happening like in the 90s and early 2000s.
Right, so, but how like he got to the place where he is in like Avengers and Winter Soldier is from this.
Or Iron Man.
Sure, yeah.
And he never made good on that promise to find them somewhere, because once 2012 comes around, S.H.I.E.L.D. gets too busy and he gets sidetracked with the Avengers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Endgame happens. They discover like a group of the Skrulls that have been working there separate off and go and live like kind of near Chernobyl, because the Skrulls can survive higher levels of radiation apparently.
Right.
So they live there.
Sure.
And they start hatching a scheme to take over most of the world's governments and essentially create more, because there's like 1 million Skrulls on Earth by like 2020s.
Okay.
So they've gone up from like a few thousand to a couple million.
Right.
And they're like, well, we're running out of space to live.
Okay.
So we need to expand, and we can't just hide among the humans because eventually they're going to get fucking paranoid. So we're going to take over the governments and then reveal ourselves. And when that doesn't work...
So instead of making people paranoid by living amongst them, and coexisting, they make them paranoid by taking over the government.
Their plan is kind of... the higher... the lower level... You have to bear in mind, it's another one of those, the lower level people think one agenda is on the menu.
And the upper level,
higher ups are aiming for something else, which is take control of the world's nuclear weapons, fucking destroy Earth.
Oh, because so they're the only ones that can literally inhabit Earth.
And...
You know what, I regret asking what happened in Secret Invasion.
And there's a whole thing where they try to kill the president. They almost get the president
and this
killed.
Is the new president. This is the guy with President
Ritson.
Sure.
And Ritson turns around and is like, so because of that...
She Ritson on my...
Yeah. Ritson turns around and is like, because of this, I am declaring a kill on sight order to all aliens.
Just aliens full stop.
Yeah.
So does he know that it's Skrulls?
He does, but he blames... He's
all aliens.
He basically pivots his whole thing towards like Earth only... Like humans
it's
first.
An America first thing.
To which Nick Fury is like, yeah, that's not going to work for you, man. Like, what do you think? Like, he doesn't say outright, but it's basically like, what do you think? Like, New Asgard is going to do? Like, you've just declared war on like all aliens,
all of this independent state that just exists in like Ireland, right? Like
Norway.
Is it Norway? Yeah, Norway.
Yeah. And so it's implied that he did not win the primaries for his own election, for his own party at the next election cycle, because obviously everyone is like, well...
And that's how someone like Ross can even get in.
And then Ross comes in with this idea of unity and also building off of the idea from the Eternals of the like...
I've just realised.
Yeah.
Surely, wait, is the vice president now in charge after Ross? Because obviously Ross
we don't know who Ross. We don't know who Ross's vice president is.
But is it immediately just that they say the vice president is in charge, or do they literally just declare a lack of faith in the entire administration, make another re-election?
No, I think
because then that would mean that once again the
no, I think it is
timeline is altered.
I think it's just that the vice president is now
in charge
until they say
otherwise. Okay. Right.
So essentially, you've got to bear in mind. So what this whole thing has been talking about, is that the political climate is not comparable to ours.
No, I agree. But then you do still have to.
But it's not stable.
Yeah.
But it's not stable in a very different way.
Where it's almost a lot more egalitarian than current politics is right now. Because each political party has everything to play for at any given time.
Well, you also have to remember...
it's just as likely that a Republican will get in as a Democrat will get in in the MCU compared to current...
Yeah, well, you also have to remember...
I doubt the Democrats are going to win next time.
You also have to remember that, like, there's probably... Like, I reckon a lot of political parties have been split in half by the sheer fact of, like, well, some of these people are going to be Republicans who want to who are representing the people who stayed during the blip, and half of these are Republicans who are representing people that disappeared during the blip, and half of these
it's almost no
Democrats
longer.
It's
almost no longer a two. Like there are far more in groups within these two parties.
Yeah, because like you're gonna have the people, the Democrat and the Republican who disappeared during the 5 years.
You probably
have way more
like
in common.
blip lobbyists.
Yeah, you have like more in common with people who disappeared with you, even if you're not politically aligned, than you do with the people who are politically aligned to you but lived an extra 5 years that you didn't. And so you end up with like, again, what's kind of interesting about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think they should have touched a bit more on, is like the world at large prioritized the people that came back from the blip
rather than the people that stayed,
which meant that like previous ownership of a property mattered more than current ownership over property. So if you moved into a house in those 5 years and then that person came back, you lose your house. It's given back to the other person.
Yeah.
And that's a decision that I assume
is probably not universal in politics, because if it is 50% of the population,
but you have to bear in mind that
50% of the entire political population as well.
Well,
and then
it is, but I wonder whether, because it's also random and it's not an even 50 everywhere,
right?
If implied in this idea is not that more people in politics in general were blipped than not, and therefore of the politicians and of the rich and everything, the bias is towards those that left
just through happenstance of people who are in charge. And if it had been
the other way around, the world would have favored the people that stayed instead. And what that means is that there's an extra dimension of all of the
political discourse that is going on,
which means that they're
probably not having the trans debate in the MCU because there is frankly far better shit to be talking about.
Yeah,
like.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like you can't be having like
can't be being like, which bathroom do they use? And it's like
you can't be having
we have a housing crisis.
Yeah, you can't be having the gay panic when every 5 years 9/11 happens.
Yeah. Like 9/11 happens, and we have a housing crisis, and like we have like contest like global war escalations over metals. Yeah, like every couple of years. Like,
I would also say that because of the blip, you've probably got a lot more parties moving towards the center just from shared experience
and shared like pragmatism as well. It's like we actually have to be bipartisan just in order to make sure that we can.
What you got after World War II, where it's like, hey, this is a shared experience that happened among all classes of people, like that. Whereas like when you look at something like whereas like COVID and the blip are thematically similar to us because they happened to us culturally around the same time.
Yeah.
But the results are different because depending on
COVID caused individualism where people got isolated from
other people,
everyday society, and therefore became more selfish.
Yeah. Whereas the blip forced people to come together because there's less of you now. Yeah. So hey, we all need to
literally have to.
Hey, we need to
talk to the people that.
Hey, like, we don't have enough people to work on farms to farm all of our food. We're going to need some of you guys to move out the city. Come,
or like all of the engineers now have to work out a way to quickly like revolutionize farming, or like
you assume there was a lot of fast tracking that went on of technology, of policy.
Probably in the same way that like the space age in the 60s caused the invention of the ballpoint pen. Yeah, where it's like fast tracking something in order to make something that is deemed necessary right now. Suddenly creates a chain
I also
of
assume that is when Stark Industries took over distribution of electricity.
We'll link this back to Danika eventually. This is interesting.
So in No Way Home, they hint at the idea that all of at least New York, but probably all of America's electricity is run on the arc reactors.
Right, because that's also extra interesting because you look at like, okay, this is getting really stupid, but like you look at Avengers 1. And Iron Man is like setting up one building's entire like
thing to
run off the grid completely, and then it's like, okay, the expansion of that is
the expansion of that you assume that the Avengers, and especially someone like Stark with a lot of money, poured a lot of money into the rebuilding process.
But Stark, especially on a human level as well, because he would be like, "Oh, it's my fault.
Yeah,
it's my fault that all of this has just happened. So I now have to like contribute a lot more." And also, all of the people that I thought have kind of like got it and handled it have just died.
And I assume that a lot of the Thanos was right people are the people that stayed from the blip,
right?
And are the people who actually found their lives got better when there were less people around, because there was more opportunity.
The unfortunate reality is that there are some half truths to Thanos's.
Well, yeah,
in that like obviously killing people bad.
Yeah.
However, like if there's less people, there are more resources to go around.
Yeah.
You have infrastructure problems, but you do have like.
Yeah.
Eventually, after maybe 2 or 3 years, you may probably do have a better living condition.
And you could argue that like what the Avengers did by bringing everyone back while making sense is also a far more damaging thing to do.
In some ways, or like in some ways, someone could make the argument
if the population
that it's selfish as well, because like most of these characters, because it's a movie and it's about characters knowing other characters, are doing it doing it so that they can see their loved ones again.
Yeah.
Like they're doing it so that they can see Black Panther again. They're doing it so that they can see Spider-Man again.
Yeah.
They're doing it so that they can see so-and-so again. Rather than they're doing it so that they can benefit the entire universe at large. Like they happen to be doing it at the same time, but realistically the character driving force for someone like Iron Man is, I just saw Peter Parker die in my arms, I now want to see Peter Parker again.
Yeah.
Or I just saw so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. How is this linked to Danika again? It's interesting, but like...
Because what we were talking about was that like, I think you can't put J. Jonah Jameson in the position
you're saying
of...
Oh no, you're saying Jay. You're saying Jay.
Yeah, I'm saying you can't put J. Jonah Jameson in the position of, he's just he's just a current day Republican.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work like that in the MCU.
Do you know what? I think all of this is going to spark back to what I said though.
Yeah.
Which is I said Joe Rogan podcast. I think Joe Rogan podcast is an interesting one to go down, because Joe Rogan is an interesting figure in that way as well. There would be an alternate universe where Joe Rogan is a mega lefty.
Yeah.
Where he went, Bernie, all the way. And then Bernie happened to win. And then he went down that path. Right? I think if JJJ is working out what to think in this constantly spiraling world...
He's bringing in experts.
The JRE experience where he keeps on bringing in experts and just listening to whoever it is that happens to have information, no matter right or wrong, or like how like actually like knowledgeable that guest is. He's quite likely to make that kind of show that mirrors our reality in some ways, but maybe doesn't mirror it in the same way that Joe Rogan has essentially just become a right-wing puppet.
But then that's interesting as well, because that's come about because he was when it started very centrist. Like, I'll listen to both sides,
genuinely
in the
just
beginning,
asking questions.
But the problem is that like by doing that, especially back in like 2015 era, the people, like, you're going to get people on the left in 2015, 2016 who are like, this guy isn't one of us.
You had a time where a lot of left-wing people liked to ostracize people.
Yeah.
And you had a time where a lot of right-wing people, post-Gamergate especially, would want to like
bring people in.
Bring people, quite extreme people in, and then go, oh, look, the left is just being a bit trigger-happy. Maybe you want to listen to what we're saying right now.
Well, also, I think it's like you'll get an exodus of people in your viewer base from the left in 2015, so they leave.
Yeah,
which means that your viewer base ends up being skewed right leaning just because of the amount of left leaning people that have left your platform.
Yeah.
Which then means that your content of yours that does better is the content that has right wing.
So you're motivated by that. I would say that you're also. It would also be, what if the people around you that were checking on you kind of left? So the people like Danika who get blips were like the people who would be the voice in their head going, no, we shouldn't do this. Yeah. Why? Oh, because this. you lose those people, much like I'm gonna bring up Kanye West of all people.
Yeah.
He lost people in his life who were the people that would say no, and then he was surrounded by yes men.
And then
JJJ was probably equally surrounded by yes men who then feed into his stuff. So when he meets Danika again, he really does not like that Danika has completely different politics from him. When he was expecting, I'm doing this all because of you. I'm doing this because I lost you, and I
oh my god, James is Kanye West. He
releases,
He releases a song.
We did it.
He releases a song called Hell Hydra. He talks about fucking his cousin. Why is that his
new law where he did what to his what? Why do I need to know this?
Yeah. I think Kanye West officially lost it for me when he made an album cover that was just a skinned monkey. That was a bit weird. Probably the worst thing I ever saw on my Instagram one morning.
Before that, it may have been.
It was like
I'm going to run for president 2 months before the election is about to be held.
Yeah,
it's like,
and it was like, well, that's interesting. That's neat. Oh, a skinned monkey on Instagram. What the fuck? That's Gore. That's Gore of my comfort character. The monkey from Night at the Museum.
Yeah, I was also thinking of the monkey from Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
The monkey scares me, man.
Yeah.
He's a troublesome individual.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we start talking about Night at the Museum.
But, like, again, because we're talking about, like, a more long-form thing with the Danika Hart show.
Right.
I think... do you know what?
I think it is genuinely more interesting. So we've essentially got the beats of a pilot episode, and then it is more interesting to think about, okay, why do you have this series? Oh, it's because there are so many unanswered questions about the wider cultural world around Marvel.
I'm going to throw something at you that might that might fuck you up a bit.
Okay.
I could see a version of this.
Right.
That is audio format only.
Yeah.
So, like Big Finish.
No, I agree with that.
But the main format of it is the podcast that she does. It's bookended, because I love a bookend.
Fuck's sake.
But by like the pre-show stuff, talking to staff and that stuff done,
where it's like off-air stuff being accidentally edited in.
Off-air stuff happening after.
Do you know how I would do it?
How?
I would have it that they are two paired story podcasts. So this is like really, really, really low budget for Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's why you can get away with weird storytelling. And so you have two paired podcasts. So you have the JJJ, like Joe Rogan Experience style podcast, and then you have the Danika podcast. And they're both like on Spotify, like kind of like
coming
how...
out
Like kind of how like The Boys does all of its marketing, and occasionally does like Vought announcements, like in-universe Vought announcements. Marvel does a little bit of a lean that way and does so there's a Danika podcast out there talking about real world experiences, quote unquote.
Yeah,
and then there's a JJJ experience. So it's kind of like, and especially this works for Disney and it works for Marvel because it is
cheap as fuck to do.
It is cheap as fuck to do, but not only that, it's technically apolitical. But also political.
Because you've got both of them.
So you get the classic Disney taking their cake and then like the cake and eating it, whatever that analogy is.
Having your cake and sitting on it too.
Having your cake and sitting on it.
Yeah.
Because it's technically JJJ representing.
Whatever.
It's technically JJJ representing what some may consider the right-wing perspective, and Danika representing a left-wing perspective. But because it's the MCU and so much has happened, it's not as black and white as that. It's just that if you are like explaining it to someone who isn't following Marvel, you can say, oh, JJJ is kind of like this right-wing person, and then Danika's kind of like this left-wing person. But then there is no like right and left in that way in the MCU anymore, so there's more ambiguity. So it is kind of more like young person versus old person podcasting.
Yeah, and then what you could do, I would pick, like, again, if I had a magic time machine, the pitch of this would be you start this like the second Far From Home comes out.
Yeah.
You start this.
You immediately put this on, and then it's just gone in the background while all of the stuff's been going on.
And it doesn't have to be every week.
There's probably like a little 3-part arc that was around Brave New World.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Well, that's what I would do. I would have it release like once a month. for both of them. They're both monthly releases.
Yeah.
But like one is at the beginning of the month, one is at the half of the month.
Yeah.
So every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Essentially, you get something every 2 weeks, but then you also get something every. Yeah.
If you're only, and it should be done in a way where you can only follow the Danika Hart stuff, or you can only follow the JJJ.
But if you follow both, you are getting a really rich like. Not only is it an inter-universe storytelling thing, it's also a inter-universe storytelling thing about a wider universe.
Yeah, because you can even get to the point where, like, the characters are saying, okay, well, I was mentioned on J. Jonah Jameson's podcast, I'm going to play that bit for you now, and you even played a bit from earlier.
Yeah, and you can play the bit from it, yeah.
And you know, I just want to have a response to this, because, and you can have, like, a mini feud going on.
The best bit about that as well is you can also take the piss in how people... You know the term clip chimping, right?
No.
Okay, but like the idea is with like a lot of people who are streaming and podcasting and whatnot, who are in the political sphere, love to just get segments where these people, where they've been doing 8-hour recording blasts.
Oh, right.
You intentionally clip out the context of what they're saying.
And you make them sound insane.
And then because they've said something slightly hyperbolic, and then one sentence later, they then explain their hyperbolic statement.
Yeah, you take that.
You take that away. So JJJ will be like, so Danika's like reacting to something that he said. She's losing it in response to him. And then JJJ just clips the bit where it's like, he's a fucking idiot. And it's like, you're taking the piss out of me. How dare you? We're supposed to be two journalists, blah, 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 blah. And so you then get, so it's kind of like, you get the wider context of the world that it kind of creates a catalyst for an episode where it's essentially just these two characters have a long-lasting rival bitterness.
Yeah, and then you could do special episodes where, like, you do JJJ is, like, on the news. Like, talking.
Yes. No, that would be great as well, because then you would basically do like the Fox News talking head stuff where it is live action, but it is also very low budget.
Yeah.
So you just you do like a special episode every now and then where it's just that they're both on like, okay, this is probably that I have more brain rot than you, so I watch more random stuff. But you've seen like how Piers Morgan does his stuff these days, where he'll intentionally get like quite lefty people and quite right wing people, and then put them on and then discuss like the Israel-Palestine conflict.
And then
like, I'm just trying to get both sides of the picture, and then see like absolutely all of them losing their minds. And then because he's essentially just put like
the most
chickens next to lions, he looks like this really smart guy. Yeah. When most people who know Piers Morgan's like career history know him as that guy that is a scumbag that like did illegal recordings in the Leveson Inquiry and stuff like that, right? He is a crooked man. He now looks rational because he's
But it's if you're invested in the two people who are the vocal mouthpieces.
And then you might then have a third character through that. So you might have like a Piers Morgan who's like, I'm just looking through both sides.
Yeah, and you could do...
This is a deep meta commentary, weirdly.
But you can do stuff like this where like you have like guest characters and that's how you promote, and you can use that as part of the promoting of the upcoming movies and stuff.
But it's also kind of good at promoting the other show as well, because like if you just happen to accidentally find the Danika podcast on Spotify or whatever, and then you suddenly see that there's this segment where she was on that show, and then you go, oh, she's talking to JJJ, that's that character from Spider-Man. Oh, wait, he has his own podcast, and then you listen to that as well. So it's even just like small ways of grabbing people, because if you want this to be this like very cheap long-term format system within the MCU, you need to find ways to grab audiences back and forth, because like people will drop off and drop on. So you need it to be formulaic enough that people could be like, I'm just going to tune into that one episode because I'm about to watch Brave New World, so I'm kind of curious about what's happening in the weird sport.
Well, that's the other thing, is that you could then, like, if say when Brave New World was on its way to come out,
any day now.
So what do you mean?
Any day now.
It's like Brave New World came out in February. The election took place. Our actual election took place in November. So from November, and then like,
so it was November 2025 for them. Because he got elected in 2026.
No. Elected in 2026. Remember,
so that he would have been declared the victor in 2025, and it would have been in 2025. No, it would have. If it starts in 2018 again, they would have had an election series
in 2018, where they become president in 2019.
Yes,
that's what. But the election always takes place on an even number year.
So he would have come in 2027.
Yeah,
and then it would have been the election cycle of 2026.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
you have to remember you have to remember it's weird because we have an election and then that person is prime minister.
Because in the UK we're actually we have a stupid system, but at the end of the day,
it's instant.
The guy just leaves, and then the other guy comes in the next day. Whereas in the US, it's declared in November, and then the other guy sits there for a while, and then in January, the other guy comes in.
Yeah.
Stupid. Anyway.
And, yeah, so, again, you could have done stuff where, charting what's happened in those in that time period. And at the same time, you could have gone, when that's happening at the same time as the Daredevil mayor thing, and you've got these two political figures who are elected around the same time, i.e., November to December era.
Oh, because Fisk would have basically been elected in the equivalent of the midterms for what would have been
he's elected
Ross's presidency.
He's elected just before New Year's.
Right. Okay.
So Fisk becomes
it would have basically just been a weird media cycle where Fisk gets
Ross wins.
Yeah.
He then Ross wins the election. Does
the
not
other
become
guy
president.
stays in office for a bit. Then
Fisk becomes mayor.
Yeah, and then literally
a couple of days later
is Ross is in government.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then you could do things where Do you know what
I think our main fan base would be for this kind of podcast?
Autism.
Close. The Marvel Wiki people.
Yeah.
Because it would give very exact dates to very, very specific things.
I'm a big fan of Marvel Wiki type YouTubers that do that all themselves, on their own.
Yeah.
Or trawl through Marvel Wiki to make
to make a coherent timeline.
There's a YouTuber hold on. A Bit of Everything is the guys. They're very
a bit of everything.
They're very PowerPoint bit type stuff, but they are very good at if you
low quality on the video production.
On the video production,
do the research.
Very good.
Okay.
This is what I use. I use this. I watch this guy's stuff whenever I'm even when I know all of it, I'll watch it to be okay, I'm still caught up. I haven't missed anything that's been said. Some of the best ones were when Loki was coming out. He was using each episode of Loki as they were coming out to figure out how the multiverse stuff works. Back when it was brand new.
Okay. And
being okay, so is there a difference between timelines and universes? He says there are. We don't know if that's going to stay the case or not, but the idea being that universes are made separately, but timelines branch off of a universe.
Right. So there is a Fox universe that has multiple time.
Never had.
So Days of Future Past makes sense within that continuous universe because that's two different.
The Fox universe was never linked to our universe.
Yeah,
and that's why you can jump from timeline to timeline easily. Yeah. In Endgame.
Speaking of alternate universes, the Fantastic Four thing would be interesting.
Yeah.
As well on the thing where it'd be there is a rocket in space.
Yeah.
What's going on? Mm. Actually, no, that would be really interesting if JJJ brings on people being yeah, it's the Skrulls. They're back.
Yeah.
And then it's what do you mean? There is a thing that says 4 on the side. What's going on?
He also does stuff where when trailers come out, just before a film is about to come out, so just before Thunderbolts comes out, he takes all the trailer footage and he tries to guess what the order of the footage, where.
Oh, I kind of I don't like that kind of stuff, but I'd shout out.
But it's him being okay, what do we think? What do we think is going on with this movie?
I think for me with I understand why YouTubers do it, but for me it drives me nuts because it's just just find out in 2 months.
Yeah, but
is usually how I feel, especially because it's just there is a reason why it's been cut this way so that you don't think about it too hard.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you are thinking about it way too hard. Ultimately, it kills your experience of just enjoying a movie. I think
it
does for me.
I think what kills the movie far more for me is when they show the fucking trailer for the movie I'm about to watch in the cinema.
They did that for Thunderbolts, which is what it didn't kill our enthusiasm for it.
It didn't kill my enthusiasm for it.
I think it was very close to, because it had happened like the third time in a row for me.
Yeah,
which is why, because it was I watched Revenge of the Sith. It happened before Revenge of the Sith.
Wait, they showed the trailer for.
Well, yeah, they do trailers before.
Yeah, but they showed the trailer for the anniversary edition?
No, they showed the trailer for Thunderbirds. Thunderbolts. Why am I saying Thunderbirds, bro?
Right.
Thunderbolts.
No, but that's not the same
thing. They did Thunderbolts, and then they did Sinners. But no, it wasn't just that. So they would do the Thunderbolts trailer where it was the normal, like, nice, like, theatrical cut.
Yeah.
And then they would do the Odeon one right afterwards every time.
What's the Odeon one?
Where it's you two can get a free lanyard or whatever the fuck.
Oh,
it happened before Thunderbolts as well.
Right, yeah.
So it was, I watched Revenge of the Sith, Thunderbolts ad.
Yeah.
Sinners, Thunderbolts ad. Also having to explain friend of the podcast to friend of the podcast Phoebe.
Right, what?
Because Hazel and Phoebe understandably aren't checking in on the MCU, so they were like, who are these people? And I was like, I was trying to like explain it really quickly. I was just like, there are no real American superheroes right now, so there are some European superheroes that are coming in to help.
Yeah.
I was just like a quick fix. And then Thunderbolts, they show it afterwards as well. So if you're regularly going to the cinema, you're like, I am tired of looking at Thunderbolts trailers.
That's not kind of what I'm saying. Like, I am more than happy to see the same trailer multiple times for other movies that I'm watching. So like I'm always happy to see the Superman trailer or to see the Fantastic Four trailer.
As long as it's once
per viewing, yes. I don't even like when they play a trailer twice, or like I would prefer if they're going to play.
My problem wouldn't even exist if they had a buffer of one trailer between those two things.
Yeah, or
that's the thing.
Or if it was,
this is really nitpicky.
If it's two, if it's like the trailer 1 and trailer 2, maybe like I'd be like, just show me trailer 2 at that point. Or whichever trailer is better.
Yeah, like trailer 1 has done its run. Now go on trailer. Yeah,
which that also annoys me at the Odeon. This is becoming a Yap podcast.
Yeah,
but the thing that annoys me about Odeon is that they have the old trailers for a lot of movies, whereas like it's like they didn't have the new Superman trailer. They didn't have the new Fantastic Four trailer,
and the main
but whereas I went to like an independent cinema over.
They've got the new one
over when I was in Cornwall.
Yeah,
they've got all the new trailers on there, and it's like it's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. Why would you show me the trailer that I watched?
I think bigger chains just get complacent, so they just like play the tape, whatever.
But then the thing that really, as I was saying, the thing that really does piss me off is watching the trailer for the movie I'm about to watch, and I'm like, don't do that.
I paid the money. I'm here. You don't need to sell me on this. I am literally here.
It makes no difference to you now that I've bought the ticket.
No, like there is zero benefit for me, the viewer. And there is zero benefit for you
because you could have put
marketer.
a different ad. You could have put a different ad.
You literally could have. Like, I think I would have rather seen a trailer for Daredevil.
Yeah, just a Disney Plus.
Just because it's like, hey, remember Disney Plus is a thing.
Yeah,
because like they maybe couldn't have done Ironheart by then because they hadn't probably done the teaser release or whatever. But you could have easily done Daredevil and been like, remember, Daredevil is ending soon. Go watch it all.
Yeah,
if you're one of those people like me who doesn't always. Like that one, I have definitely missed the time to watch it week to week, but I would love to watch it in a big bulk, right? Anyway, it's a whole thing. Anyway, in short, I think the reason why we're talking about all these things is because the premise of the idea that we just had is a very meta podcast series now. But I love that concept because it is essentially, it's kind of in the same vein as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And in Thunderbolts, where they're kind of teetering on political commentary, but in a way that makes sense in the MCU.
Yeah.
So it's a podcast series that teeters on real world like media cycles constantly changing in the new context of the MCU.
I'd much rather see a with how broad the MCU's world building is. Yeah. I'd much rather see what I'd rather see a political show about what that world's politics is like, rather than a show that tries to use our politics in the setting.
And then be like, okay, I want to make a story about this real world event and then recontextualize it into the MCU. Yeah. It's kind of it's properly analyzing how do you get real world events and properly recontextualize them into the MCU rather than just, I have an idea, I have a high concept analogy idea, I'm now going to apply it. It's more, here is the high concepts of things happening in the real world, you're now going to trickle it into the MCU and make it kind of fundamentally connect. I was also going to say, it kind of feels like the correction of what's kind of going wrong with this current phase is that it all kind of feels too fast, too soon, and a lot of them, after their phase 5, phase 6, whatever, their whole conversation about it being like, oh, this is the multiverse saga, but there's also the real world stuff happening in this corner, and then there's the supernatural stuff happening in this corner, and then there's the alien stuff happening in this corner. This is a proper thing like in phase 1 and phase 2 of the MCU, where they went, okay, how do you connect these worlds properly? Yeah. This is like you this is the Agent Coulson of pre-Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but this is the Agent Coulson of connecting worlds in that way. Yeah. Anyway, much needed,
much to think about.
Lower tier productions within the MCU that aren't just spin-offs, they are connectors.
Yeah.
Is what I think this is.
I think, and it would be really cheap. Like sure, if you were to do J.J. Jameson thing, getting J.K. Simmons would be tough.
But you wouldn't have to always get J.K. Simmons. That's the thing. You would get what I would do if I was a producer, I would get a voice actor impersonator, and then every now and then give what's the real actor's name? J.K. Simmons
the paycheck to do the live action
to do a 5-minute short.
And then I would
especially because he'd probably love that. He'd probably love to be just like, oh, I get to shout in a mic for 5 minutes. Perfect. Put me in the studio for one day.
I think it would be so easy to do.
Yeah,
and like
it's kind of like in the same way that we, as a podcast, we have finale episodes.
Yeah,
every now and then where we do a little bit. They would just be doing a little bit with J.K. Simmons.
I see it as more as like, Doctor Who has Big Finish. And it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's clearly for a group of... There's enough of a market for it.
Just to cover the overlap, because probably there aren't many people who are big Doctor Who fans who then immediately know what Big Finish is. In the UK, there is an audiobook company called Big Finish, and then there are, their main bread and butter are Doctor Who stories.
Yeah, just audio stories.
Audio stories about what the 5th Doctor's up to in bloody blah, or what the 6th Doctor is up to.
It's usually done as a way to keep the old legacy actors in work.
Yeah,
on Doctor Who stuff, and make new stories with
people
them.
Who are, let's be real, getting close to passing away, like Tom Baker.
Yeah,
it's people like that where they're like, okay, we'll kind of just, have last send-offs for him every now and then, and it's something that he can do feasibly as an old person.
Yeah. And I think Marvel could definitely benefit from their fans with autism who would probably I don't even know if this is something that I would 100% keep up with. I probably would, because there's something wrong with me. But
I would probably keep up with this because it's stupid.
It would be interesting, and it would be if you release it as a podcast.
Put it this way, it would be the perfect one. Even me, where I'm yes, I'm on this podcast, but I'm not a massive Marvel fan. I won't go to the cinema. I won't immediately go and watch the next big thing unless it's actually compelling me. But I would happily sit down and listen to Tom ramble about what happened in the last 50-minute block of whatever this thing was, and then be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool.
And you just get that, but from what does the studio feel about what is the, because you'd also get a bit of feeling of what is the studio thinking with the stuff they're putting out?
Yeah,
in terms of disguised as, what do these characters in universe think? It's what are we going for here? You get more of a sense of First of all, you shut up.
It's cheap, easy, and regular.
You'd shut up all of those people.
For MCU.
Those people that were like, it's been X amount of days since they've mentioned the giant celestial in the ocean, and they kept doing that every year.
Where it's like, no one's mentioned Hercules in a while or Harry Styles, and it's like the reason why no one has mentioned these two people is because there's nowhere to go with these plots.
Yes, stop asking.
Stop asking. You don't want a Hercules spin-off. Yeah. You don't want Harry Styles back.
Why isn't Wanda here? Why?
Seth Rogen's nowhere.
Yeah.
He's a little elf that hangs around with the brother of Thanos, who is played by Harry Styles. There is nowhere to go with this.
It's not good.
It's not good. You don't want a spin-off show with Seth Rogen in this position.
Unless you do a Thanos prequel, it doesn't work.
I love Seth Rogen. You don't want the little Seth Rogen goblin, though.
No. Anyway, I think that's it. That's an hour and a half.
That's great.
Of
absolute pure yapping.
And in result, so to conclude, we've created another podcast that's not real.
Yes, in our podcast, we have created a pitch for a podcast. Not just one podcast.
For two podcasts.
And a potential third live-action TV
show thing, maybe.
Cinema.
Except
not, it's a podcast.
Earbuds?
Audio.
Well, because the cinema is where you go to watch films.
Spotify.
So Spotify.
Spotify.
Oh.
Unfortunately, right, we've got 5 more randoms left for the entire podcast duration.
You probably shouldn't tell them that.
I'm just going to say it. I'm going to be real with you, audience.
Why?
I'm going to tell them the truth.
There's no need.
Cut that out.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Hello, welcome back.
Hello, nothing happened.
Yes.
I didn't say anything.
God damn it. Right. When we restart,
yeah.
Don't do the nothing happened there. Fucking millennial humor.